Let's move on to Russia's infringement against Japan in order to shift the U.S. focus to the Pacific. After a Russian military spy plane violated Japan's airspace 3 times on Monday, Tokyo activated its air force, scrambled fighter jets, and fired flares. Yes, you heard it right. Japan's air force took a very tough and decisive step against this daring step by Russia. This critical intervention comes a month after a Chinese military surveillance plane directly violated Japanese airspace for the first known time. Monday's incident was the first known violation by a Russian military aircraft since 2019. If we move on to the details of Japan's intervention, we will first need to examine the statements of the country's defense ministry. On Monday, Japan's defense ministry confirmed that a Russian military Il-38 patrol plane had entered Japanese airspace off Riben Island, northwest of Japan's northernmost main island of Hokkaido. Japan noted that the spy plane entered its airspace 3 times, lasting 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 1 minute again. In response to this attack, the Japanese Air Self-Defense Forces scrambled F-35 and F-15 fighter jets and fired flares to warn Russian aircraft. A map published by the Japanese Defense Ministry showed the flight path of the Il-38. Following the mapping of the violation, Tokyo expressed its strong objection to the incident through diplomatic channels with Moscow. In fact, Japan had already announced that its airspace had been violated before the violation by the Russian patrol plane. Late last month, Japan's defense ministry reported that a Chinese military Y-9 was in Japanese airspace for 3 minutes. At the time, fighter jets of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force took off, but no flares were fired. China regularly uses military aircraft in international airspace in accordance with international law. It also often flies into disputed airspace to signal its position. But last month's incident was the first known incident in which one of Beijing's military aircraft directly violated Japanese airspace. Days later, a Chinese Navy ship violated Japan's territorial waters west of Kuchinuerabu Island in the Tokara Strait, southwest of the country's 4 largest islands. China's Schuppen-class research vessel remained in the area before heading southwest to Yakushima Island. While PLA officials claimed that the 2 incidents were not related, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning argued that the passage through the Tokara Strait was completely legal and legitimate. Following the unauthorized transit of a Chinese military Y-9 spy plane and a PLA Navy ship violating Japanese airspace near the Danjo Islands, southeast of Nagasaki, the involvement of a Russian Il-38 patrol aircraft in the latest incident caused renewed tensions in the region, putting Japan, especially its air force, on alert. For the time being, Japan has been waging an adequate fight against 2 different dangerous elements in the region. However, experts believe that Japan more attention to Russia. The reason for this is shown as a long-standing problem between Japan and Russia that has caused great tensions. The address of this problem is the Kuril Islands. Russia claims rights in this region, but Japan does not accept this. Most recently, a remarkable decision of Russia regarding Kuril came to the agenda. The Kremlin banned non-Russian ships from entering the waters near the Kuril Islands, which are under Russian occupation, but claimed by Japan. Tokyo saw the move as part of a series of threats against Moscow, following the recent security alliance between the U.S. and Japan. James D.J. Brown, a professor of political science at Temple University in Japan, suggested that Moscow would retaliate further against Japan. According to Brown, every time Tokyo does more to help Ukraine or strengthen military ties with the United States, Moscow takes measures to punish Japan. The former U.S. president also shared important assessments on this issue. He said that Japan is likely to impose more sanctions in support of Kiev, adding that Moscow's retaliation is almost guaranteed. Retaliatory measures are not only targeting Tokyo. A Russian citizen residing in the Kuril Islands was admonished by a Russian court in March for statements he made to Japanese media about the territory's past belonging to Japan. Russian President Vladimir Putin has adopted tough policies on this issue. President Putin even announced that he would visit the Kuril Islands, dashing hopes for sovereignty negotiations that both countries have been working on for decades. So, how long has this problem been going on? Russia and Japan's competing claims to 4 islands off the northeast coast of Hokkaido date back at least to the 19th century. Towards the end of the Second World War, the then Soviet Union began to fully occupy the Kuril Islands. Japan claimed that the Soviet Union included them without any legal basis and refused to sign a peace treaty. Tokyo reported that about 17,000 Japanese residents had been expelled from the islands. The two countries have been negotiating on and off for decades to reach an agreement, but to no avail. In fact, the flare up of this problem subsided in 2016 when the two countries agreed on joint economic activities on the islands, including tourism projects and visa free visits for Japanese citizens. 2 years later, former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe proposed the division of the 4 islands and the return of 2 islands to Japan, but Putin rejected it. Akihiro Iwashida, a professor at the Slavic Eurasian Research Center at Japan's Hokkaido University, called this Putin's failed diplomacy toward Japan, which eventually led Tokyo to adopt a tougher approach toward Moscow. According to war experts, if Putin had shown Japan goodwill by negotiating a peace treaty with Shinzo Abe, Japan would probably not have taken a critical stance on the Ukraine war. But now it seems that Japan no longer needs to limit its sanctions policy against Russia.
Interesting stuff going on amid our little earth that we live on. This is Neil's Han Dynasty. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be kind, helpful, and grateful. Buy some silver, some platinum, and some crystallized osmium because it's sound advice, not financial. I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Nor will I give medical advice. I will just give my opinion. So don't get them too confused. I don't want YouTube giving me a strike for speaking my mind. Have a good night, all.